folks, today in this video I'm going to be tackling sort of a different project from what I usually work on. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll probably realize that they all focus on vehicle maintenance or repair. But today I thought I'd make one about how to repair a Kenmore electric dryer, because mine's on the fritz, and I figured while I'm at it trying to fix it, I may as well try to help some other folks out there as well. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a Kenmore 70 series front load electric dryer. It's sort of an older model, so I'm not sure how many of these there are floating around out there still, but parts seem to be still readily available, so I'm guessing there's a few of these still in service. So you may find yourself with a similar problem. But anyway, recently my wife noticed that the hot air stopped blowing in the dryer, so clothes were no longer drying. The tub will turn and rotate, and the timer works, but the clothes just don't get dry because the dryer's not producing any hot air to help warm the clothes and remove the moisture. So I noticed that there was a giant blanket of lint in the trash can, so I asked her, and she said, yeah, that came out of the lint trap. I'm not sure why, but because she said normally she changes it after every load of laundry. So I don't know if we just had a extremely fluffy blanket or something that went through the wash and got dried and clogged up the lint trap, but I believe my problem is related to either a thermostat or a fuse. So I've already started to get kind of set up and ready to go here. The first thing we want to do obviously is unplug the dryer, which you can see I've already done. When I unplug mine, I like to go ahead and turn the breaker off first, just because I have to reach over the dryer to get to the plug, and I don't want to accidentally touch one or two of the prongs on the plug. So the dryer's unplugged, we're safe. All of our work is going to be done on the back side. There is a metal cover here that conceals all the internal workings of the dryer, and there's a series of screws. These can all be removed with a 1/4 inch nut driver. So we've got one here, you can see I've already removed here, that's 3 on the left side, same on the right side, 1, 2, 3, which I have all removed, and then there are 3 in the center of the panel. There's sort of a separate cover here that shares a screw with the main panel, and there's 2 other screws here. I believe all of them are 1/4 inch nut driver. So I'm going to go ahead and finish removing these and remove the panel, and we'll see what we have inside. I'm sorry, I just realized that I failed to mention one other very important step, and that's obviously to disconnect the ducting from the dryer vent. As you can see, I've already done that. I've got a couple of hose clamps that hold mine on, so I've removed those. And that's important because the back shroud of the dryer completely captures that dryer vent connection, so you won't be able to remove this back panel until you get that ducting out of the way. So that's taken care of. I'm going to take those 3 screws out and get the back panel off, and we'll move along. Alright, I've got the back panel removed. You can see where the wires from the cord connect, and power flows down to the heater and other components. So what we need to do is check the fuses and thermostat to make sure that we don't have any problems. And to do that, we're going to need to check for electrical continuity. And what I mean by that is to make sure that current can flow freely through the components. So the way a fuse works is obviously when it trips or blows, it prevents current from flowing through. So we want to check the fuses to make sure current is still flowing. If it's not, if we don't have continuity, obviously that means that we have a problem with the fuse and we need to replace it. So the first thing I'd like to check, because I've had to replace it before, as you can see by my tags here, is this guy right here. This is the thermal fuse. I replaced this several years ago, so I'm going to check that first for continuity. And if that's bad, then I'll go ahead and check the other components, but that may be the only one that's bad, so I'll check that first, and if need be, I'll replace it. That should solve the problem. If that fuse is still good, then I'll probably check this, which I believe is the high limit fuse. So I believe that's set to blow at a higher temperature, possibly from the thermal fuse. I'm not entirely sure, but in any event, it should have electrical continuity if it's working. So I'll check that. And then down here, I believe that's a thermostat. I'm not 100% sure, but once again, that should have continuity through it, I believe. So we're going to check that and see what we find here, and hopefully one of these guys is bad, because they are relatively inexpensive and easy to replace. If it's something worse like heating element, then it may be a little bit more expensive and involved. But I'm going to go ahead and get my electrical multimeter slash tester and show how to check continuity in the fuses. Alright, so I've got my multimeter handy here, and if you don't have one of these, it's a very useful thing to have around the house. You can pick them up at most hardware stores or places like, you know, Lowe's or Home Depot. You can spend quite a bit of money on them, or you can get a cheaper one. Obviously, the cheaper ones may not last and don't have all the features, but I think I paid maybe $40 or $50 for this one at Lowe's, and it does pretty much everything that I need it to do. But if you're going to do any sort of electrical troubleshooting, this is a must-have. So anyway, to check continuity, you can see I've set it to this audible setting right here. You can sort of see something that looks like sound waves. The way this works is when you touch the leads, you will hear a chime. You can hear that. That lets you know that you have continuity. So in essence, if you touch the leads to any wire or fuse or anything that allows current to flow from one side to the other, that should be just the same as touching the leads like that, and we should hear a beeping sound. So I'm going to start with this thermal fuse. Obviously, we want to pay attention to which wire connects to which terminal. In my case, I have a, let's see, well, they're both the same color, so what I had done last time, and you can still see my tags, I labeled them left and right. So make sure you pay attention to which wire goes where. You're just going to simply pull gently, wiggle those wires off. Make sure you don't, there's only, for some reason, there's only one screw holding this fuse in, so if you tug too hard on this end, it could snap. So since I don't have anyone to hold this camera, I'm gonna set it down, remove that second wire, and check, and then get ready to check continuity, just so I don't break the fuse. I'll be right back. Alright, I've got the wire removed. I'm going to see if I can do this with one hand. I've got one lead touching one terminal of the fuse, and I'm going to touch the other one now, and we'll see if we hear the beep. There we go. I'm not making good contact because I'm using one hand. There we go. So clearly we have continuity in this fuse. So that tells me that that thermal fuse is still good. So I think I'll probably move on to this guy up here, which is the high limit. And I'm going to go ahead and remove these wires first. They should just pull straight off. Once again, pay close attention to which one goes where. Here I've got a solid red and a red with a white stripe, so this makes it easy to distinguish. So I'll move those out of the way and get set up and see if I can test this with one hand while I hold the camera. I'll be right back. Alright, I've got those wires removed. Now I'm going to go ahead and check for continuity. This is, again, kind of tricky because I'm using one hand, but let me give this a try. Alright, I feel like I'm making good contact and I'm not hearing anything. So that tells me that this may be the problem. I think I'm going to verify this. I'll set the camera down and just double check this off camera to make sure that I'm making good contact so I can use two hands, but I think we may have found our issue here. Let me confirm that and I'll be right back.